Why did Mary, Queen of Scots, lose her throne? The dramatic fall of Scotland's most controversial queen. Imagine being born to rule a kingdom, only to spend your final days behind bars awaiting the executioner's axe. Imagine being a queen who held the hearts of men, yet was betrayed by those closest to her. How does a queen of three kingdoms end up losing everything? What fatal mistakes did Mary Stuart make that led her from a golden throne to a blood-stained scaffold? And why did her own cousin, Queen Elizabeth I, sign her death warrant, knowing it would shake the very foundation of England? This is not just a tale of power, it's a story of love, treachery, war, and murder. A child queen forced into exile, a doomed marriage that rocked a kingdom, and a brutal betrayal that ended in a beheading. Brace yourself as we uncover the deadly plots, bloody conspiracies, and dramatic battles that sealed the fate of Mary, Queen of Scots, the woman who dared to challenge the throne of England. And before we dive in, hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and get ready for one of history's greatest royal dramas. On December 8, 1542, a frail infant girl was born at Linlithgow Palace, Scotland, a child who would one day claim the crowns of Scotland, France, and even England. The problem? Fate, politics, and treachery had other plans. Her name was Mary Stuart, but history would remember her as Mary, Queen of Scots, a queen whose life unfolded like the script of a tragic drama filled with romance, betrayal, war, and one of the most infamous executions in British history. But how did a queen born to rule lose everything? Let's take a deep dive into the dramatic rise and fall of Scotland's most controversial queen, uncovering the plots, betrayals, battles, and fateful decisions that sealed her fate. Before Mary could even hold her crown properly, she became a target. At just 6 days old, her father, King James V of Scotland, died of illness and heartbreak after losing the Battle of Solway Moss against Henry VIII of England. The Scottish throne now belonged to an infant girl. This was music to Henry VIII's ears. The English king, always hungry for more power, saw an opportunity to force Scotland under English control. He demanded that Mary marry his young son, Prince Edward, a proposal the Scots rejected outright. Henry, being Henry, responded with a scorched earth policy known as the Rough Wooing, 1544 to 1551, an ironic name for a campaign that involved burning villages, looting churches, and slaughtering Scots in an effort to force Mary's marriage. Scotland, determined to keep its independence, sent 5-year-old Mary to France in 1548 to be raised as a French princess, far away from English swords. There, she was betrothed to Dauphin Francis, the heir to the French throne. It seemed Mary had escaped England's grip, but her destiny was far from secure. By 1558, at just 16 years old, Mary married Francis, becoming the Queen of France. When King Henry II died in 1559, her husband became King Francis II, making her the most powerful woman in Europe, Mary, Queen of France and Scotland. But the triumph was short-lived. In December 1560, tragedy struck. King Francis II died suddenly at just 16, leaving Mary a widowed queen in a foreign land. Now powerless in France, she had no choice but to return to Scotland in 1561, a country she barely knew, filled with religious turmoil and political factions that despised her Catholic faith. What am I to do? Mary reportedly sighed as she looked at her homeland from the deck of her ship. The answer? Survive. Scotland was a powder keg of conflict between Catholics and Protestants, and her half-brother, James Stuart, the Earl of Moray, along with Protestant reformer John Knox, saw her as a threat to their Protestant cause. John Knox, never one to hold back, publicly denounced her rule, saying, "A woman ruler is a monstrosity in nature." Charming, right? Mary, however, wasn't easily intimidated. She played politics skillfully, keeping her enemies at bay. But her biggest mistake was yet to come. In 1565, Mary fell in love, and not with just anyone, but with her handsome, charming, and disastrously arrogant cousin, Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley. They married in July 1565, despite everyone advising against it. At first, Mary was infatuated, but she soon realized she had married a disaster. Darnley was drunk, violent, and power-hungry, jealous and possessive, a terrible politician who wanted the crown for himself. Darnley wanted Mary to make him King of Scotland by right, which she refused. Their marriage spiraled into a storm of toxic arguments and betrayal. Then came the murder. Mary had a close friend and secretary, David Rizzio, an Italian diplomat. Darnley, convinced that Rizzio was Mary's lover, plotted his murder. On March 9, 1566, during a dinner in Holyrood Palace, Darnley and his men stormed into Mary's chambers, dragged Rizzio out, and stabbed him 56 times, all while Mary, pregnant with the future James VI, was held at gunpoint. Mary never forgave Darnley. The problem? Darnley had just made himself the most hated man in Scotland. A year later, in February 1567, Darnley was mysteriously murdered, his house blown up with gunpowder, and his strangled corpse found outside. Suspicion immediately fell on Mary and her ally James Hepburn, Earl of Bothwell. But was Mary actually guilty? The biggest scandal of Mary's life? She married Bothwell, 3 months after Darnley's murder. Bad optics. Really bad optics. The Scottish nobles already plotting against her saw this as their golden opportunity. In July 1567, Mary was forced to abdicate, handing her crown to her infant son, James VI of Scotland, who would later become James I of England. Betrayed and alone, Mary fled to England in 1568, seeking help from her cousin, Queen Elizabeth I. Big mistake. Elizabeth, seeing Mary as a rival to her throne, imprisoned her for 19 years. During this time, Catholic plots formed to put Mary on the English throne, most famously the Babington Plot, 1586. Elizabeth, needing an excuse to eliminate Mary, had her tried for treason. The verdict? Death. On February 8, 1587, Mary was executed at Fotheringhay Castle. As she knelt before the executioner, she whispered, "In manus tuas, Domine, commendo spiritum meum. Into your hands, Lord, I commend my spirit." It took 3 swings of the axe before her head was fully severed. The executioner held up her head, only for her wig to fall off, revealing that Mary's once beautiful hair was completely gray. Politics is a deadly game. One wrong move and you're finished. Love and power don't mix well, especially if you marry a man like Darnley. Beware of allies, they might just be waiting to betray you. Perception is everything. Mary might not have murdered Darnley, but her actions sealed her fate. And there you have it, the epic rise and tragic fall of Mary, Queen of Scots. If you love this story, subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell, and get ready for more gripping historical dramas.